Welcome to the Retirement Evolved podcast with certified financial fiduciary Adam Bruno.
Oh, my. Adam and I were just laughing off the air. He works with a guy who's having lunch right now as we're recording this and putting this together for you.
And he's ordering my lunch, and he's chewing at the same time.
We're trying to do the show, and he wants to know what you want on your sub. Come on now.
Yeah, there's lettuce flying all over the place, and luckily I have this nice partition, so the sound stays nice and trapped here. But man, I'm looking at the back of it. There's lettuce and croutons flying. And
stuff everywhere.
It's like the Tasmanian devil.
Well, appreciate you listening as always. I am Bill Seller, along with Adam Bruno. How are you, buddy?
I am good. Thanks, Bill. Adam Bruno, certified financial fiduciary and owner of Evolution Wealth Management, Evolution Retirement Services, and very, very hungry right now, Bill. Well, yeah. So it's always a good time for me to do a podcast. It's great.
We got to get this done so that you're finished when the sub gets there. So listen, man, I was reading this the other day, and I thought, holy cow, what kind of mind did George Orwell have in 1949, right? You know, George Orwell wrote in 1984. But he wrote it in 1949. And I saw this story and thought, holy cow, you talk about Big Brother watching. This guy got arrested because his car basically told on him. He crashed and abandoned his Mercedes, which has a safety feature that calls the police if you have a crash and are unresponsive. So the car reported his exact GPS location, and it led the cops right to him, whereupon he got arrested because apparently everything was his fault. So,
Lord.
But boy, you talk about something out of 1984, right?
1984. Talk about that. How about Terminator? I mean, it looks like the machines are going to take over eventually.
No kidding.
The funny thing about that is, unless you pay for that service, they usually only include it for like the first year that you have the Mercedes. So the fact that this poor guy either paid for it or didn't even know that it was included now, goes to tell you how car sales are these days, I guess.
Well, my other thought was it his Mercedes?
That's true. Maybe it wasn't.
Had he borrowed it? I don't know. Golly, but that's that. I read that and thought, wow, that's scary right there. And,
well, great marketing for Mercedes, though.
Yeah,
right? I mean, that's
absolutely, absolutely. So we've been doing these podcasts for a little bit now, and just so you kind of know why we're here, if this is the first one you're listening to, we want to talk to you about things to be ready for when it comes to retirement, right? To make sure that all that money you've worked hard for and all that money you've saved is in the best position possible to work for you now that you're getting closer to the years where you're going to want to get that money back. And a lot of what happens to our investments, Adam, and you're the expert here, I'm just kind of summarizing, is that money is affected by a lot of things that we can't control right now, especially like inflation, taxes. And we look at different indicators a lot of times, I know, to help with our investments. And this headline caught me the other day, and I was going to ask you about it. Copper is down. The price of copper is down. And a lot of analysts say that means a recession is coming. Right now, it's down about 25% from its peak price. But how do you feel about those kind of indicators? And does it actually show anything?
Yeah, the funny thing about indicators is that it's such a broad spectrum, right? It's very easy, when you see gold or silver, you see metals, right? Normally we see a lot of action in metals when the market isn't performing that well. So now and then it causes the metals market to not perform well because everybody's getting out of the market and going to metals now. So when we talk about indicators, there's a ton of them. I can give you a perfect example, Bill. I think you know this. I used to be in the casino business back in college. I was working my way through college. And everybody and their mother had a plan when they came to my high-limit baccarat table or high-limit blackjack table, and I'm dealing to them. They all had a system. They had a plan. They had indicators of when they should bet more money, right?
Absolutely.
And sometimes it worked, and a lot of the times it didn't. I feel the same way about indicators in our market right now. One indicator that you can look at when we talk about historical data is the Shiller price to earnings index. Obviously, we know the price of the stock compared to its earnings, but the Shiller index adds a few other layers to that cake, right? And we can look at that and we know that the last time that price to earnings index was this high, was back in the 1920s before the Great Depression. So is that a gloom and doom prophecy, or is it just something that's happening now? There are things that, lead us to be a little bit more careful. The price of bonds. We talked about this at length, the last few podcasts.
Right.
When bonds are not performing, that's a very good indicator that something's wrong, especially when bonds and the market are moving in the same direction. So Well, let's go back to your initial question about the recession there, though. Are these signs of a recession? And I think we've talked about this before. I want to make sure I reiterate this. If we look at the word recession, where we're taking a step back, right? I would challenge anyone to tell me that we're not in a recession right now, Bill, because every investor is kind of taking a step back right now, right? A normal family, a normal retired family is taking a step back. That's why they have, hundreds of thousands of dollars in cash right now. In a year when it's at 8.6% inflation, so they know they're going to lose 8.6% purchasing power by keeping it in cash. But that's how nervous the market has made us now. So this idea of recession, I would argue that we're already there with people taking that step back.
Yeah, that is very interesting. And of course, that kind of leads me to one of the other things I wanted to talk to you about today. And that is the importance of having somebody like you helping us with our money. Look, a lot of folks do this on their own. I know, right? I've got friends who are day traders, and I've got people that kind of do their own investment plan and have been saving on their own. And some are doing very well, and some I keep giving your phone number to because
well, I appreciate that.
Not doing so well. But with all this uncertainty right now, we're talking, like we said, about inflation. Are we not in a recession? Stocks and bonds failing. Everything just kind of hitting us all at once. How does working with a financial advisor help more for folks to navigate through all of this versus, I don't know, just like what you were saying, suppressing the urge to stuff all your money in a mattress and hope for the best?
Right. And I think the number one thing I would say to that is working with a financial advisor, air quotes, is not necessarily going to help you. And that's the dangerous part of the world that we live in right now, when things are happening with the market, when things are going down, when we see more people rushing to try and get advice. And it's not, I think I've said this before, it's not their fault, Bill. We just had 15 years of an up market. I mean, they could do it themselves. They could look like experts doing it themselves because the market was up. So, everybody's making money. I'm going to say it again because it's so important. When we get to retirement, or we're shortly approaching retirement, it's not about the performance anymore. It's about all of the other things that are going to happen in retirement. It's about the taxes, the Medicare, the Roth conversion, or to not convert to Roth. All of these things, we don't need a 30% return anymore in retirement. A 30% return at this point is not going to change our lifestyle. But if we lost 40%, I'm pretty sure that would affect someone's lifestyle, right?
Yeah.
So it becomes less and less about performance. And believe it or not, Bill, that's the point that people need to get to. They need to understand it doesn't matter if I'm a big Dwayne Johnson fan. I grew up a wrestling fan. He was The Rock back when he was wrestling. He always used to have this saying, it doesn't matter. Yeah, it really doesn't matter what the performance is, because if you get a 30% return, as I said before, and it's not going to really affect your lifestyle at all, that's just more taxes. That's more problems down the road, especially if it's in an IRA. We keep deferring these taxes longer and longer, as long as we can. And I think we've mentioned this before. We're in a 40% discounted tax environment right now. Taxes are 40% less. It's been almost 40 years since we've had this kind of discount on taxes. So, this whole idea of performance, that's why people, when they go to a financial advisor, they're most of the time going to focus on performance. And at Evolution, performance is a quarter of what we do here. Heck, I would say performance isn't even the issue. Investments are the issue. How do we maintain? How do we preserve? How do we get compounding growth? I'm not talking about growth one year and then, the next year we're down 20%, but we got a 30% return the year before. No, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about consistent compounding growth, because nothing beats consistent compounding growth over time. Nothing does.
You mentioned taxes, and that, if for no other reason, I think is a good idea to have a financial advisor for, because pandemic, no pandemic, hard times, no, tax laws change all the time.
All the time.
God, how does anybody keep up with them except for people that are experts? So, my friends who try to do this on their own sometimes don't do so well because they don't know the tax changes, because they don't understand all that stuff. So to me, just for taxes alone, it's worth having somebody in my corner.
Well, Bill, the reality of the situation is I don't know all the tax laws. That's not my bag, right? That's not what I specialize in. I specialize in the planning aspect. I specialize in being prepared. I specialize in making sure families are diversified in multiple ways. And we're putting some real parameters around what we're willing to lose at this point in our careers, our lives. So to your point, that's why we have two CPAs that we work with, because that's their job. They know what all the changes are every year. We don't have to, Kurt and myself, we don't have to keep track of it. Of course, by osmosis, we're gonna end up picking it up because we'll know what happened, but we're not studying it every day, and how can you assume that a financial advisor is looking at taxes like that and getting in the weeds, especially if they don't work with a CPA? That's one of the easiest questions you can ask someone that you're thinking about working with. Hey, do you have a CPA that you work with? They might say, well, I've got a guy, right? They don't say that he's a part of the team. They say that they've got someone that they can introduce you to. Our CPAs are a part of the team. Our estate planning attorneys, they're a part of the team. It's important that they're on the team, because there has to be that connection. It can't just be, let me send you to this guy and he'll deal with it, right? Because if it's not all working together, we're missing out on opportunities.
Absolutely. All those pieces of the puzzle have to be able to fit correctly for that retirement when it finally gets here, right? You hate to think that you've done almost everything and then the centerpiece is missing. The retirement puzzle, right?
I'll tell you, you want a perfect example. I just took on a young lady, really like her. She used to be a teacher. She's in California. And we started to branch out a little bit now. We're getting phone calls from different states. And there are a certain number of families that I will work with in different states other than Florida. Because, we're in Fort Myers, Florida. Obviously, we spend the majority of our time working with families that are around us. But it's been amazing, especially in California. I've seen this exodus of people that are calling me. And she even told me on the phone, she introduced her CPA to her financial advisor last year and wanted them to work together. And she ended up paying $16,000 more than she should have because the relationship wasn't handled correctly. So even when you have them talk to each other, that doesn't mean they're on the same page. Take it from her. They weren't on the same page. If she ended up paying $16,000 more than she should have, something was wrong. And she did the right thing. She said, I really think it's a good idea if you guys talk to each other. But it didn't work because they're not on the same team. They're not on the same page. So it doesn't matter if your advisor knows somebody or I've got somebody for that. It's how much are you working directly with them? How involved are you? And to tell you the truth, we reserve the right to pay for our family's taxes and their estate planning. So those are things that we're paying for, not them. We want to make sure it's done the way that is best for them, that we know is best for them. So it's just a collaborative effort. And you get too many people in this industry that have the ego. And I'll say it again. Too many people in this industry have an ego. And to a certain extent, you have to have a little bit of an ego to do what you do every day. But to an even bigger extent, that ego gets in the way. It really does. Especially if you tell someone, okay, just move this money over here and I'll handle it. In what way does that create a meaningful relationship? If families are not involved with their own planning and they don't have any idea what's going on, they're just supposed to trust that person that he's doing the right thing. It doesn't make any sense to me. You're going to hand somebody your life savings and say, oh, you know what? Yeah, I trust you. Go ahead and do your thing. It doesn't make any sense. Families have to be collaboratively involved in the process.
Absolutely. And which I find that point of view to be fascinating, because more often than not, people I've talked to about this, and I said, hey, do you have a financial guy? Do you use an advisor? Most times I get an answer like, I'm just not willing to share all that information, right? Most people, I think, tend to be a little more shy about hiring somebody versus, hey, here's all my stuff, good luck. Because I first of all, if you do that, well, shame on you for whatever happens. Because you should always be in control, I think, this is just me talking now, of what you are doing. Yes, I'm working with you. Yes, I've hired you to do this, but you know what? People forget sometimes that you're working for me. It's not the other way around, right?
Right. And to your point, people are hesitant about their situation or sharing it, usually for two reasons. Reason number one, they have done this themselves successfully for years. Okay. They're not sure that they want to turn over the reins to someone else. And as I said, that's most of the time what they're hearing. Well, if you move this here, I'll do it this way. There's nothing collaborative about that. It should be, if we were to move these funds, let's take a look at these managers and let's see who meets your risk tolerance the best, right? And these are going to be your options, and we'll give you the stories and the returns for each one of these options. Let's decide together which one's going to work best for the situation. And if people just had to deal with that, it wouldn't be a problem. But most of the time they go to these advisors, and again, the ego gets in the way. They're wearing the Rolex, they got all their, the suit on and all that stuff. And, oh yeah, we'll do it this way. And you're going to really like what you see. Really? What does that mean? What reason number 2 that people don't like sharing their information? They flat out don't trust people. They have heard too many horror stories. They've had too many things happen where they've said, oh, this guy lost me this amount of money. They just don't trust you. Those are the 2 biggest reasons why people don't want to share their information. And Bill, I don't know about you, but don't those sound like pretty valid reasons?
Oh, absolutely. Look, I'm not questioning anybody for that, but at some point, yeah, I don't know. This is just me. And again, I'm not.
But what I'm saying, to continue what you're saying, you're absolutely right. You can't let that be an excuse for getting help that you need. One way or another, you need the help, you need the information. But you can't blame people for being scared of where they're going to eventually get that information from. How do they know that this is the right person to give it to them? And again, that's why I created tax-free Fort Myers, FortMyers.com, because on there is the link to our podcast. On there is the link to the book that I wrote. On there is always articles. There's always workshop events that I have if people want to come out and see me live. We usually do them here in Florida at the Broadway Palm Dinner Theater. I try to support local business. It's a great evening. There's a huge buffet. There's always a national touring show that's going on right after that. We talk for about 45 minutes. I share some of the newest things that are going on in the industry, some of the big concerns. We're very collaborative in the way that we do things. So when people normally talk with us, they already have a really good sense of who we are and what we do. That's why we don't run into those issues. So shame on the other advisors out there who aren't following that process, who aren't putting the ego aside and saying, listen, I'm an expert, but, what I recognize is that we're still all human beings. You have to be able to trust someone before you hand over your life's work and say, what do you think, right? I mean, there's no rapport building. There's nothing like that. People lean on their letters behind their name and say, like, I'm a certified financial fiduciary, right? But I don't lean on my letters and say, hey, just give me your stuff because I'm a certified financial fiduciary and I'll tell you what's going on. Right. That's not what that means. Yeah. It means that I'm going to do everything I can in your best interest, not my own. That's what fiduciary means. So is it really in somebody's best interest to look at them and say, yeah, bring all your statements, come in and we'll talk about it? Like, what?
Yeah, no, I agree. Hey, as they put your arm around me, trust me, I got you covered, right? No, that doesn't work for me.
But to your point, Bill, they have to do it. They have to find someone, because I think we talk about this all the time on the podcast. These issues are not going to go away. They are going to affect you at one point in your life. I've got 10 to 15 years behind me that says I see it every year, and I see it most often in families that are approaching 70. That's when it really all starts to dawn on them. Oh my gosh, I've got this huge time bomb in my IRA, this huge tax time bomb. It's going to go off eventually. I'm going to have to pay the taxes. And what I would say to the younger people right now, go ahead and look at your IRA balance. And if you're listening to us, look at your phone if you need to. Look at your IRA balance. Now subtract about 35% from that, because it's not yours. That balance is not yours. You still owe a big portion of that balance to the IRS. And I hate to tell everybody, I hate to tell you this, but it's not going to go away. What you can control is how much you pay to the IRS. You are going to have to pay them, but you can still control how much. Would you rather do it now in the lowest tax environment we've been in close to 40 years? Or would you rather take the chance in 2026 and start doing it then, when you could be paying 20 to 30% more? So you still have control. You mentioned that word earlier, and I always find that word fascinating. People don't like to give up control. The reality, though, is if you're a family that's been successful, you are going to have to give up control at some point, whether it's to the IRS, whether it's to the, whatever it is. Right. You don't have complete control over your money, or you have very little control, compared to what you think you have. So very important.
Yeah, it's kind of like being married. right? You think you have control. But
This feels like a trap. This feels like the old Admiral Akbar. It's a trap from Star Wars. I'm not even going to step in that one.
And that is why you are a smarter man than me, sir. Oh, listen, hey, again, if you want to check out more about what Adam's talking about, get the book, right? It's called They Lied, The Real Cost of Your Retirement. And again, it's at taxfreefortmyers.com. That's tax-free, and spell it out, FORTMYERS.com. You're going to learn the difference between investment counseling and wealth management. He talks about mistakes to avoid with your IRA and 401ks, questions you should ask your advisor. Don't be afraid to ask stuff. All of that's in the book. They Lied, The Real Cost of Your Retirement at taxfreefortmyers.com.
Gosh, Bill, that's so important that you brought that up, and it just jumped into my head right away. A lot of people will be comfortable with their advisor and they have such a good relationship. Oh, we go out to dinner. He comes and sees me. He does it. That means nothing to your money. It means nothing. Your trust in them and your faith in them needs to be founded. And if you're not asking questions and you're not asking the right questions, if you don't know exactly what you're paying, I sound horrible when I say this, but I've met with so many families. I'm confident saying that if I were to speak with you and I told you I had a gun in my hand and I told you your life depended on it, you have to tell me exactly what you're paying in fees. Most families would not be able to do that, Bill. And how sad is that, right? We know what we pay our lawn person. We know what we pay our CPA. We know what we pay our doctor at our copay. We know all these things. But we're going to hand our life savings to someone and we don't know exactly what we're paying? That's the scariest thing in the world. And it happens all the time over this idea of, well, I trust my guy or I trust my girl, right? Well, that's got nothing to do with it at this point. Now it's about the business. Now you're retired. It's different now. Does your person, your financial advisor, have a plan in place for the retirement years? Because I know we deal with these issues on a daily basis because most of our families are in or nearing retirement. So these are things we're seeing on a daily basis. Another advisor, if they've been working with someone since they were in their 30s or 40s, they might see something like this on a monthly basis, or every other month they'll see something come up. So we've just had the training, we have the response, we have a way that we do things, a process designed just for retirement, and it's worked very well.
Yes, it has. Well enough, as a matter of fact, to become an author, because I know you did this to become a well-known author, sir, when you wrote this book, and that was your goal in life. What I find fascinating, tell the story again about why you're giving this book away at taxfreefortmyers.com as opposed to selling it like on Amazon or whatever. I love that story.
First of all, let's go back to how this started. I grew up a certain way. I was pretty sick until I was about 10, 11 years old. I would read a lot. I was really into sci-fi, fantasy. I love the dragons and the Lord of the Rings. I've read everything. I read everything I get my hands on. And I told my mom that, one day I'm going to write a book. I just never imagined that it would be in the financial industry. So fast forward to middle school, and I mentioned that my friend at the time, she wasn't really my friend, but Jackie Venturelli, I had mentioned to her at Yearbook Club that I was going to write a book one day. And Jackie Venturelli and we were up for Most Likely to Succeed in the superlatives category for the yearbook. Well, I won Most Likely to Succeed, and Jackie won the class clown category. So in my yearbook, she ended up leaving me a note saying, Bruno, have a good summer. Call me when you finish your novel. Just really sarcastic. So kind of lit a fire under me. I always carry that with me. So fast forward now to these days, it just all came together really organically. I've been doing the same thing for the last 5 to 10 years, trying to spread the same message. And I felt like I was really spinning my wheels. And I said, man, I got to find a way to just make sure everybody who can hear this hears it. So I wrote the book. And it was very important that it was in my own words. I used a company called 90 Minute Books. What they did was they collaborated everything that I had in my outlines, and I just spoke everything. Every chapter, I got this long blurb back from them, and I continued to edit it and put it together in my words and everything. And, I did that while my newborn son at the time, he's 18 months now, so I think he was like 3 months old. And I'm on the computer, I'm rocking him. I got the bottle under my chin. I'm trying to type at the same time. And, it just, when I got done with the book finally, it was a big weight off my chest because I knew I had done something great. And I wanted to find a way so that people could get it for free. So Amazon, when we originally finished everything with the publishing, and Amazon wanted it on there for $10, I think, for the physical copy. I said, well, that's fine, Amazon. $10 for the physical copy. Every year we try and do, the proceeds go to charity with that. I always just, this year I'm hoping that we can find a local chapter of Make-A-Wish and do something with them. But for the digital download, I wanted Amazon to offer it for 1 penny. And the funny thing about that was I was thinking, 1 cent for Adam's 2 cents. But Amazon said, no, it has to be 99 cents. And I'm thinking in my head, where do you get 99 cents from? That's profitable, but 2 pennies isn't. I don't get it. It's all air, right? I mean, it's just basically downloading and sending something to air.
Right.
Anyway, I created the tax-free Fort Myers site so that people could get the book for free, because I did not get into this business to be an award-winning author or even an author. Writing a book was always just a dream. It was always a bucket list item. I don't want to be on Oprah's book club or anything like that. That wasn't the plan when writing the book. I just wanted people to get the information. More importantly, I wanted them to get it for free, and I wanted them to talk about it. Because when we start talking about it, that's when real change happens. So now on taxfreefortmyers.com, you can download it. You click our book and you enter in your email, and it downloads automatically. I'm also going to be writing 2 articles for Kiplinger this year. Those are going to be available on the tax-free Fort Myers site as well. When you have your email address entered in, I want to be very clear on this. We don't sell your email to anybody. It stays in our system. Every week you'll get some kind of an update with an article, something that's happening in the market. You'll just be in the know now. You'll get some additional knowledge from that. So, to your point, I did. I know that's why you said that. I know you got into this to be an award-winning author. I in fact didn't do that, but the fact that I've been able to create something that kind of gets the conversation started, I think it'll probably be more relevant probably 20 years from now. Just like, Edgar Allan Poe died penniless, and now all of a sudden the estate's worth millions of dollars because he's such a great author. Maybe that'll happen to me like 40 or 50 years down the road. Who knows? But I definitely did it because I wanted the conversation started.
The writings of Adam Bruno, now worth a fortune.
Oh, Lord.
This has been the Retirement Evolved podcast with Adam Bruno, certified financial fiduciary, as well as owner of Evolution Wealth Management and Evolution Retirement Services. You can find out more about Adam and his team at evolutionretirementservices.com. As always, we thank you so much for listening.
Investment advisory services are offered through Evolution Wealth Management Incorporated, an investment advisor registered with the state of Florida. Registration does not imply any level of skill or training. Evolution Wealth Management's unique CRD number is 307644. You can obtain a copy of Evolution Wealth Management's firm brochure, Form ADV Part 2A, free of charge by visiting advisorinfo.sec.gov. Evolution Wealth Management offers investment advisory services only, where it is appropriately registered or exempt from registration, and only after clients have entered into an investment advisory agreement confirming the terms of engagement and have been provided a copy of the firm's ADV Part 2A. Insurance services are provided by Evolution Retirement Services. Any guarantees mentioned are backed by the financial strength and claims-paying ability of the issuing insurance company and may be subject to restrictions, limitations, or early withdrawal fees, which vary by the issuer. They do not refer in any way to securities or investment advisory products. You should consider the charges, risks, expense, and investment objectives carefully before entering a contract. This material has been prepared for informational purposes only and should not be construed as a solicitation to affect or attempt to affect either transactions in securities or the rendering of personalized investment advice. This material is not intended to provide and should not be relied on for tax, legal, accounting, or other financial advice. Evolution Wealth Management and Evolution Retirement Services do not provide tax, legal, or accounting advice. You should consult your own tax, legal, and accounting advisors before engaging in any transaction. Evolution Wealth Management and Evolution Retirement Services are affiliated entities.